una piedra en el camino me enseñó que mi destino era rodar y rodar, rodar y rodar, rodar y rodar. También me di un aliento, hay que llegar primero, pero solo hay que saber. Con dinero ni sin dinero, hago siempre lo que quiero y mi palabra es la ley. No tengo trono ni reina, ni nadie que me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone, please. If we could have everyone please be seated. We have lots of chairs in the front row. Non-Bob Uecker seats right in the front. There's room for everybody. On Broadway is all about inclusion. There's room for everybody. Please find a seat. Good morning, everyone. I'm Barb Lemieux with the New North, and today I have the privilege of serving as your MC as chair of the On Broadway District. We'd like to thank you all for joining this morning as we celebrate businesses who have chosen to reside in the On Broadway District. This is where it all starts. No businesses, no district, no Main Street organization. We thank the property owners who continue to reinvest and invest and invest. And to the organizations, volunteers, and the dynamic On Broadway staff who make this such a very special place. Please join me in thanking Arthur Gabriel Smeal for the wonderful musical played during this networking reception this morning. In 5th grade, I tried playing the violin, and my instructor said, "Oh, you know, Barb, I think you're better suited for a clarinet. Let's try that." Tried the clarinet. She said, "Well, how about saxophone?" I tried that. She said, "You know what? Bongo drums. You are so suited for bongo drums." So that's my claim to fame. I also want to acknowledge many of our elected representatives and government partners who are joining us here this morning. I will read all their names, and then at the end we will ask them to stand to be recognized and thanked for their public service. Mayor Eric Genrich, County Executive Troy Streckenbach, Carl Wojciech from Governor Evers' office, David Brooker from Congressman Mike Gallagher's office, State Representative Christina Shelton, Brown County Supervisor Kathy LaFave, Alderman Jim Hutchinson, Alderman Randy Scannell, County Supervisor Megan Borchert, County Supervisor Dan Thino, Melinda Danford, Phil Wisniewski, Wisniewski and Deanna Kazuski from Oneida Nation. My maiden name used to be Arbaleski. Nobody got that right. And I would invite any other elected representatives that I missed this morning. Please all stand to be recognized. We thank you for being public servants. We know it isn't easy, and many times it's a thankless job, but so critically important. I'd like to acknowledge my fellow board members who were able to join us this morning. Kasia Kantowski, Gail McNutt, Garrett Bader, and Tommy Everman. Are there any that I missed? Please stand to be recognized and thanked for your service. And please join me in thanking our presenting sponsor for today's event, American National Bank Fox Cities President, Paul. You will be hearing from Paul in just a little bit, but Paul, please come forward. We also want to thank our sponsors. We know events like this just don't happen without the financial support. We have many businesses today that are supporting that are also from the Main Street District. Renewal by Anderson, Creative Results, Apex Real Estate Team, Aon, Green Bay City Club, Liberty Title and Abstract, Hawkins Ash Bapty, CPA, and the Business News. Our table center sponsors were provided by Pedal Pushers. Our coffee was provided by Copper State Brewing Company. If this were at 5 o'clock, they would be serving a little bit different beverage, but hope you enjoyed the coffee this morning. Our awards created by Badgerland Badge and Sign. This event is being streamlined today by LiveX. We also thank Corey and Rachel for opening up their beautiful facility last night to host the First Lady. This beautiful venue and delicious food was provided by Gather. Tommy and Jill, we thank you for all of your contributions, not just today, but all year long. Let's give it up for all of our sponsors. On Broadway Incorporated is a nonprofit organization and relies heavily on the support of the public to continue our mission to promote the Broadway District as Green Bay's cultural core for entrepreneurs, creatives, residents, and visitors to engage and succeed in a welcoming environment. You've all heard me say this before, no money, no mission. We have an incentive for you today to donate. On Broadway staff will be walking around to collect envelopes towards the end of today's presentation. One envelope will be drawn at the end of today's program, and their winner will take home a beautiful oil painting from Wisconsin artist Nathan Bradner. His work is absolutely amazing. Please be sure to fill out a donation envelope on your seat or table. You can also scan the QR code on the screen or in your event program, and we will enter your name into the drawing. If you're watching virtually and would like the opportunity to be eligible to win this one-of-a-kind painting, please click on the link into the comments or use this QR code. This painting is valued at over $1,300. We thank you in advance for your support. Now, please join me in welcoming Paul Northway, President and CEO of the event's presenting sponsor, American National Bank Fox Cities. Paul.
Thanks, Barb. Quickly, on behalf of American National Bank, we are very proud to once again be the sponsor of this event. Last year, my board meeting fell on this morning, so I sent a video. I thought that'd be a nice way, nice touch, until Brent Weicker started live texting me and realizing and showing how big my head looked up on that screen, which I guess it still does. So I'm supposed to have my bank board today, and I bumped them back later in the week. I hope that goes well, and I hope I'm back here next year to do this again. We're proud to be part of this district, fascinated by your stories, your stories resonate with us because we have a very similar story. When we came to the Green Bay market, we were a bank that was started 31 years ago in Appleton. But when we came to Green Bay a handful of years ago, our story is very similar. I think a lot of you know it. We started in a co-working space. We graduated to a smaller suite in the rail yard. And then a few years back, we moved to a bigger office in the Chamber building. And as we speak, we're actually expanding that space. So we're proud to be part of this. We're proud to be part of the growth that's happening downtown. You know, you think about everything that's going on downtown in greater Green Bay, we've got a lot of cool stories to talk about. We've been part of it. We've lended over $80 million in the Green Bay market since we got here. And that's primarily to small business. Yeah. I think we've been doing this, the sponsorship, since I think it was pre-COVID. I know we missed the COVID year. But I've been up on stage, and I think I've talked about a lot of the things, and we've lived through, and we've talked about a pandemic, and we've talked about a recession, and then inflation, and maybe another recession. Who knows? The reality is there's always something. Isn't that what running a business is all about? There's always something. There's always odds. There's always obstacles. But what I can tell you is I'm proud of everybody in the room. I'm proud of how you handle things as business owners, how you just tackle, push things to the side and keep moving forward. We call that persistence. I call it grit. You just get it done, and you have. And look at what it's doing. The reality is, through all of this, your persistence, that true grit, it's kept moving your business forward. It's moved this district forward. Heck, it's moved our entire community forward. And what a community. What a cool community that we live in. So I don't know how you measure cool. I don't know where you Google it and try to determine what makes a city cool. But my goodness, if the NFL is going to bring their draft, right? It's got to be an indicator of cool. So there's some fun stats to that. The NFL draft was established in 1936. We will be only the 13th city, I'm going to fact check, but the 13th city that's going to host an NFL draft. That's going back a heck of a long time. And it's been dominated over the years by two cities, Chicago and New York. Really New York for the longest. We've got to be one of the smallest, got to be the smallest town to ever host it by far. Pretty cool. The economic impact, I know this has been out there, the economic impact of Green Bay is expected to be about $20 million. The statewide impact is north of $90 million. But more than anything, it's kind of like when you're out raising money and fundraising, I like to think about the friend raising, and that's what this is about. How many people are going to come to this town to experience it and see how cool we are and how cool your businesses are? That's the win. The friends that we are going to make in 2025. One little fact I'll finish up with too. Did you realize Milwaukee held the draft in like 1940? Did anybody know? Yeah. So, but it's 2025 in Green Bay. Proud of all of you. Respect the heck out of like the two things I said, your persistence, your grit, and what you do for this town globally, not just this district, but this town. Thank you for letting us be a part of this. It's a privilege. Enjoy the program.
Thank you so much, Paul. We are super excited about the draft, and yes, we are the smallest community to host it, but we are small, but I like to say, so is a stick of dynamite. Just watch. You just watch what's going to happen. It's going to be epic. Now, we are incredibly grateful for strong public leadership who have the vision and a passion. Downtowns and historic commercial district play a very integral role in our region, functioning not only as prominent employment and business centers, but oftentimes as the cultural and civic heart of a community. We are proud that in our 18-county region, known as New North, we are home to 9 main streets and 21 connect communities. These are WEDC programs that help local leaders leverage the unique assets of their downtowns and commercial districts, providing access to resources and networking opportunities to support local initiatives. Now, please help me welcome the Mayor of the City of Green Bay, Eric Genrich. Eric?
Well, thanks so much for the introduction, Barb. Great to see everybody this morning. It's always a true pleasure to be able to come out every year and talk about the great successes that On Broadway is engaged in. Just thrilled about what the future looks like. I think Barb and Paul touched on a lot of the great things that are in store for us. Obviously, we've got the draft coming up in 2025. I know that everybody in this room is really thinking about that as a lodestar, something on the horizon that we can all be focused on. I think it's really motivating for me, for the community. These events, take place right all across the country. The NFL knows how to put on a great event, but they're focused on the event proper, right? And our focus is making sure this event benefits the entirety of the community. So downtown Green Bay, on Broadway, the military bid, Old Main, and businesses and nonprofits all across the community are really going to be focused on pulling out that benefit, making sure those dollars and those individuals come downtown, and I think we've got a ton to offer. As of today, we've got a lot going on, but I think you fast forward to 2025, I know Brian's going to run through some of that and talk about those highlights. You fast forward to 2025, we're going to have even more that's attractive for folks that are visiting and to check out here. Just to touch on a few of the partnerships that we're engaged in, Leicht Park I think is going to be a real gem. It's one of the biggest public spaces that we have available to us in our downtown. I think it's in need of some refreshing, some additional amenities. We're really thrilled about some of those concepts that Brian's going to talk about. Obviously, the public market. There, too, the city of Green Bay is heavily invested in making sure that that's a success. I know that it's going to require some additional investment, hopefully some folks in this room to make that a reality. But that's another thing that is just going to be a huge attraction for the city, for the region. Is going to be a huge generator of economic activity and social activity. So we're thrilled about that as well. The other piece that we've been engaged with on Broadway on a very serious basis is creating more housing for people at all income levels. You look back at our housing study just a few years back, and there's a desperate need for additional housing from luxury to low and moderate income, and that's what we're interested in providing in every corner of the city. But we can't do that work on our own, as you all know. That requires a lot of partnership, and we couldn't ask for a better partner than On Broadway. They've got a great team led by Brian, but so many folks who spending their blood, sweat, and tears making sure that this vision is realized, from his staff down to board members, Barb and the whole team. Everybody's really committed to making sure this dream is realized. And so I just couldn't be more grateful to have a partner like On Broadway, similar in downtown Green Bay, and all the work that Jeff and his team have been doing all these years. So just, as I said, really enjoy the opportunity to come here and celebrate with you all, to thank you all for all the work that you've been engaged in and will continue to be working on in the years to come. So thanks so much for having me. Enjoy the day, and if you have an election today, make sure you vote. All right, take care.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Now it is my privilege to introduce our Executive Director of On Broadway, Brian Johnson. Brian has served in this role since May of 2016 and continues to show dedication to the success and the prosperity of this On Broadway district. You will note from Brian's presentation that he is leading with his very dynamic On Broadway team several transformative projects for the city of Green Bay. He genuinely wants to make the On Broadway district and the city of Green Bay a better place to live, work, and play. In fact, right here in this exact location, we will be hosting the State Main Street Awards Breakfast excuse me, on April 19th. We are confident much of what Brian shares will receive state recognition. Please help me in thanking Brian for his vision as he comes to the stage. Brian?
Okay, test, test. Can you guys hear me? All right. If anybody back there wants to sit down, feel free. I promise I'm not a spitter. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We talk every year about how this group gets larger and larger, and yet, indeed, here we are, another record-setting crowd. We have over, between you here in person today and those virtually, we are over 300 strong today. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. We obviously think that's a strong reflection of the enthusiasm, the excitement, the investment that our entire community has in what's going on here in the Broadway District. We know you have things to do. You have kids to drop off at school. You have meetings to go to at work. I know I myself like to go to the gym in the morning. Haven't been there in 5 years and 123 days yet. But I do thank you for coming out today and making those sacrifices just as I have done one more day. Okay, so last year we made a bet with the staff, and I lost that bet miserably for those that were here, which was that I could get done in a certain amount of time, and then I had to buy them a nice dinner, but it was all worth it. But today we do want to start on a very serious note. For those who hadn't heard, Greg Larson, namesake of the Larson Canning Factory, passed away last week. Greg was one of those true visionaries of what the Broadway District could become. And he led this organization for nearly 20 years and was just an incredible part of what we have accomplished as an organization, because if you don't have a foundation, of course, it is very difficult to really catapult into the future. So if you could, I'd like to just take a moment of silence to recognize Greg and his efforts. Thank you. Okay, so we like to set kind of the base every year and just talk about who we are as an organization, because sometimes I think that gets lost. We are, first and foremost, as Barb had mentioned, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And so we do rely on community support in addition to some other things which we'll go through. But that means we are also mission driven. And so we like to just start with a little bit of an overview. We, of course, have our mission as an organization. We have a vision, just like every other organization. I'll let you kind of read these on your own. But we also have a district vision, which is slightly different. And we're going to talk about sometimes the brand confusion that exists and why we have a separate district vision. But obviously, as you can imagine, what we do as an organization sometimes can be a little bit different than what we're trying to accelerate as a district. And so that's why the district vision does exist separately. I want to credit Joe Kittinger, who's actually here today with this. And Joe, thank you. Just rebranded to Dignify, just made that announcement. Congratulations from Profit Marketing. But we still hold true to these, and we review these regularly every month at our board meeting. Our board goes through this, and we talk about this, and we talk about why we exist, what we are called to do, and what our core values are: safety, courtesy, communicate often, execution, and plus the district. Plus the district, I really love this term in particular. It's kind of whatever the baseline is that people expect, plus that. We need to do one better. And so we talk about this regularly as a team. We talk about it as a board, and it's really integrated into everything that we do. So where does the Broadway District exist? We are the Purple. Okay, so Jeff Merkis with Downtown Green Bay and Old Main Street and his team, they lead the east side. I'm not sure why downtown is underwater. Jeff, we got to talk about this map. Are you okay? But we are the Purple, so we are the west side, and Jeff and his team manage the two districts, the two business improvement districts on the east side. We are a national Main Street program, and we follow a 4-point approach. Interestingly, International Downtown Association, which is a very comparable organization that encompasses a lot of our larger cities, they follow a very similar approach. They have 4 points as well. They call them different things. But it's the same principle, and we like to organize our annual report and our presentation around these 4 points, because we think it's important to emphasize that we don't do just one thing. We are most well known for our events. We get that. That is the most visible thing that we do. But we do a whole lot of other work in between. Economic vitality talks about the importance of business recruitment and retention. The mayor alluded to housing, infill development, renovation of old spaces. Design talks about urban design, right? So not graphic design, but it's about the design of the district. And so when you think about your streetscape, your pole banners, your plantings, maintaining things, public art, historic preservation, all part of design. Organization is ensuring that you have a good foundation, that you have, that you're financially stable, you have a good board of directors, that your staff is invested in professional development. If you don't have a good organization, it's really hard to accelerate any of these things. And then last is promotion. And of course, events is a big part of this. It's about promoting the district. How do you get people down here? But it's also about the brand of the district, and an area in particular that we think presents a really great opportunity for us moving into the future. We are a designated and accredited Main Street program. We are accredited at the state level. We are also nationally accredited. And so this is just a quick map of some of the cities throughout the state. We are one of the early ones, formed in 1995. We are a Great American Main Street winner, which was really exciting. And once you've earned that honor, you cannot earn it again. And so it's kind of a nice stamp of approval that you get to hold indefinitely. So On Broadway is again, 501c3 nonprofit governed by a board of directors. That is On Broadway. The Broadway Business Improvement District, or the Broadway BID, is a separate board of directors. That is the special assessment district. Every property owner in the Broadway district is assessed an amount on their property tax bill, and by state statute, the Broadway BID oversees that funding, but we obviously have a very close working relationship with them, and in fact, some of the members of the Broadway BID serve on the On Broadway board to make sure that we are in sync. And as I mentioned, we are a Main Street program and part of the National Main Street Framework. Okay, so let's kind of dive into some of the fun stuff. We're going to start with organization because, quite frankly, it's the least fun of the pillars. So, with that, let me tell you about our board. Okay, in all seriousness, folks, we have an incredible board. We are so fortunate. One of the reasons that we are successful is because we are surrounded by successful people. And we take very seriously the board matrix when we evaluate who is on our board of directors. And our executive committee serves as our nominating committee, and they are very careful about bringing in a very well-balanced board. You want folks that represent large organizations, you want small business owners, you want property owners, you want folks that have experience with event planning and promotion, folks in the tourism industry. So as you can see, we have a very diverse, very eclectic board that all bring special gifts to the table and help us make really well-informed, educated decisions as we take on some of the ambitious projects that we have. And so I do want to, and I know Barb mentioned it, but I would like to take another moment to just acknowledge them. So thank you to our board of directors for all the hard work that you do. And this is our staff. These are the folks that, quite frankly, make me look good. I get a lot of credit for things that I do not personally do, and so I really do want to take a moment to say thank you to our staff. We have had a number of changes this past year, all in a very positive and meaningful way. Of course, I am the executive director of the organization. Allie has been with us for 4 years now, I believe. She was hired post-pandemic as our director of special events and really kind of takes on an operations role for us. Brooke just made a transition. For the first time in On Broadway's history, we have a full-time director of development, and that was a lesson learned through COVID. As many of you know, we suffered through COVID because we were so heavily dependent on event revenue. When events were wiped out, so was 90% of our income. And so the board was very intentional about making this commitment and saying we need to become better diversified in how we generate income as a nonprofit. We get it. We're not doing a lot of the things that traditional nonprofits do. We're economic development, and so we really had to, it's harder to raise money in that sphere, so you have to have someone who's committed to it. Additionally, we have Mary. Mary brings with her, when Brooke was director of marketing, and so she transitioned to development. Mary took on, we just hired her this a couple months ago, as our director of marketing, and this is our first split position. And actually, Brooks will end up being split as well, but Mary's our first hire that is split. And what I mean by that is half of her role is dedicated to On Broadway. The other half is the public market. And we're going to talk about the progress on that in a little bit. But as you can imagine, it takes a lot of pre-work to get to that opening stage. And part of that is the brand identity that comes with that. And so Mary's going to work on that. Quincy's been with us for a couple of years, and she is kind of taking on sort of that social media, digital media presence, and has taken some shifts. She used to manage our volunteer program, and now Betsy in our office gets to do that, in addition to being a special event manager, because where do volunteers mostly work? Operations and special events. Laura is our new office manager. For the first time, I believe this might be unique to any Main Street program in the state. We hired a diverse business assistance manager. We think it is so important to serve those who are underrepresented and marginalized in our community. And a lot of them, that's where you're seeing the most significant business growth. And so by hiring an individual here to work with those businesses, to also deploy some of the resources that we've secured through Diverse Business Assistance Grant was really an important and notable step for us as an organization. Carrie is a new special events manager. And so one of the things I recognize is that Allie was coming into work at 6 in the morning and leaving at midnight, and that was no longer acceptable. We cannot run an organization that way. And so we needed to bring in some additional support for Allie, and Carrie has delivered that. And then lastly, we have Rob, who was really hired so that I wasn't the only guy in the office. But no, Rob was a package deal. When we bought Old Fort Square, he is our property manager of Old Fort Square and does really great things for us throughout the district as well. And so we're very grateful for his handiness. He's an amazing fellow. So this is the financial, this is really the boring part. The board is great, but our financial performance as an organization, this is an annual meeting, right? So you gotta at least talk about this. This is in your packet. Bottom line is we are doing really well as an organization. These numbers are sometimes hard to translate because we have 2 ongoing capital campaigns right now, numbers of which are reflected in here. But our operations are really strong. As you can see, we're really doing a much better job with things related to sponsorships, grants, and philanthropy. And so that is a big part of what Brooke does for us as an organization. And so it is what's helping us become better diversified. And then on the expense side, of course, that you can see that we are investing in all of those pillars in different ways. Some of them are clearly more expensive than others to achieve, but they are all very important to our organization for us to deliver on our mission. One of the things I just at least want to allude to, and why we've experienced, I think, such great success as an organization, is we are committed to strategy. Strategy is first and foremost with everything that we do. 2019 was when we created a strategic plan. When I started here, we didn't have one. We were kind of udderless and just, kind of floating out in the water there. And so we worked with our board of directors, created a strategic plan, and we've been committed to it. And even though it was designed to be a 5-year strategic plan, we have achieved probably 75% of what's in there, despite a 2-year bump from COVID. And so because of that and that commitment to strategy, we've accelerated our progress, and we are going to work this year on a new strategic plan. We need all of you to participate in that process. And so we are going to do a lot of roundtables with business owners, property owners, but we are also a downtown organization. The downtown belongs to you as a community. It is the one place in our city where that is truly the case, and so we need the entire community's input on what that looks like. The questions we're going to ask are going to be slightly different depending on the constituency, but we do need your support in that, and that will be coming later this year. I want to talk about the importance of volunteers when we talk about organization. And Quincy really did a great job when she was managing this program. She handed the baton over to Betsy. But a couple things that I want to mention here. 547 unique volunteers served this organization and its mission this past year. That is the biggest number ever. As you can see, over 4,000 hours, which there are numbers for this. If for those who don't work in this industry, they do calculate out the value of a nonprofit volunteer hour, and it's $31.60, I believe. You can test my math if you'd like, but it does bring a value of $140,000 to our organization. We are so grateful for every single one of you who's contributed in some way. We have so many different things that our volunteers do for this organization. I assure you that if you're interested, we can find an opportunity for you. So please feel free to reach out to Betsy. Betsy, wave your hand. Feel free to talk to her before you leave if you're interested in volunteering. The Main Street Awards, and this is a nice segue because this past year with the Main Street Awards, which was held in La Crosse, our volunteer program was recognized as the best in the state. And so again, congratulations to Quincy and Betsy, who's carried that on. And Betsy's got some really great plans to expand it even further. I'm super excited about some of the ideas that Betsy's kicking around. But we also run a couple of other awards, most notably Copper State Brewing won the best business success story in the state. And our High Five event was the best fundraiser in the entire state of Wisconsin. So, yep, go ahead. Michael Brodhagen was recognized as our Volunteer of the Year, and he was recognized at the state as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that On Broadway is the winningest program in state history. We are so proud of that because it's reflective of not just what this organization does, but what all of the businesses and property owners are doing here in our district. So we're super excited for Tommy and Jill to be hosting it this year. A couple of awards will be announced. We got them, it's still confidential, but we're super excited about continuing that winning tradition. Okay. What's funny? Okay, so Jeff Merkus, I just want to talk about the importance when you talk about organization. Collaboration is key, and having good community partners to work with is so important. And we have so many partners that we work with, probably none more important than downtown Green Bay. We think of, when you think about downtown, of course, we are one downtown, but we are actually three separate districts, but and it's such a pleasure to be able to find a team that you can truly collaborate with. Okay, design. This deck is fun, right? Because it's pretty. So, as I mentioned, public art is at the core of what we do. It is literally in our district vision statement, you may recall, right? So, we think, when you think about the book, has anybody read Walkable City? Okay, Quincy, you did not read it yet. I know you didn't. I gave it to her, she didn't read it yet. So, it is one of the best books on urban design and downtown planning that you can possibly read right now. So I encourage you all, if you're ever looking for a good book, Walkable City, and it will give you a little bit of reflection around what it is that we're trying to achieve. One of the things is about you have to make your walk interesting, right? What makes the downtown walkable? Make it interesting. What makes it interesting? Public art. And the beautiful part about public art is it's not always expensive. They are small-scale interventions that allow you to experience spaces in different ways. This is, if you haven't been down to where the Shipyard is under construction right now, we had over 20 murals added into the district this year. 10 of them came on this site alone. This is the Mason Street overpass, and the city received a grant to be able to put in these murals and did a fantastic job on these pillars, both sides, as we're preparing development for the Shipyard. But additionally, Broadway added another 10 new murals through our Mural and Busker Festival that we have now done for the past 3 years. Peter Corey, wonderful local artist. This is on Lenny's Tap. As you can see, these are just a couple of fun photos. This one was a taxidermy shop, and we incorporated, obviously, some deer. The guy wanted to put a bow and like an archery on there, so we said no to that. But it's about taking some of these old, worn-down buildings and how do you make them more fun and energetic and lively. And this was a great example of Heather Peterman and other local artists about how we engage the kids to do an interactive art display. These are just barricades in front of a building under construction. How boring, right? How do you make them more lively and more exciting so that when people who walk by there stop and take a look and they're interacting with the space? Wonderful mural on the back of Vincent Urban and Walker where people always, stand. You can see the podium there to take a picture with the wings. We said, you know what? Let's just give this one a slight refresh and make it a little bit more different. The other thing that we're going to march into this year is, and this is a trend that you're seeing everywhere, but it's utility box wraps. I love that the city is building a little bit more courage. Thank you, Mayor, for trying some of these things. And so we have a couple of utility boxes within our district that we are going to send out an RFP because we think it's important that you pay artists. If you want art in your community, you need to pay your artists. And so we are going to do... Yep. And so we are going to do an RFP, and we'll get some artists that are going to do hopefully some really great designs to wrap these utility boxes. This is what we call precedent imagery, right? We do this all the time, where this is an idea of what can happen, and these are a few examples that we've seen. Another thing that our business improvement district supported this year, actually a little bit last year, that's going to carry over and match some funds from this year, creative seating. Seating doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be a boring bench. You can see that from the benches that we have throughout the district that are painted, and that even predates me. But we gave them a refresh a couple years ago, and now we want to venture into some of this creative seating, right? And how do you involve artists again, right? And create something that's a little bit more dynamic and makes people pause when they're on that walk. I mean, it's not enough to just put a bench out there. You want people to put their butts in it, right? And so creative seating is going to become a priority this year. We'll probably just start with 1 or 2 installations, but I think it's something that we can continue and you add on and build on every single year. The other thing is bike racks. We want to be a bikeable community, right? So we talk about the notion of complete streets. You can walk them, you can bike them, you can drive your car down them, but people need a place to put their bikes, and we don't have a lot of places down here right now. So this is another area where our Business Improvement District has allocated some funds. Fox Communities Credit Union, we want to thank because they matched that grant. Yep. And again, bike racks don't have to be boring, right? We can get boring racks. They're everywhere. Every community has them, but we want something that's unique and distinct. And so here again, just some examples. I know Old Main Street did this. I think you called it Park in the Art. And so it's kind of just an extension of what's going on there. But we're really excited about being able to bring some of that in. Sculptures. I think I told this story last year. I can't remember. But it's so good, we need to tell it again. So we were in Boston on a chamber study trip with the Downtown Task Force. And I got this text. And these are some cars that we did at Ignite Market. So the concept here, folks, is that we do things at our events. And then how can we get a year shelf life out of them? I wanted to show it because these were actually removed this year because they were always intended to just be a one-year installation. And then you kind of move on and try something different. The reason I like this photo so much is I got this text when I was in Boston. I was sitting next to the mayor on a train, and I looked at him and I said, "Your parking utility gave our public art a parking ticket." And then I said, "We're not paying this." And thankfully the mayor had said, "Yes, I agree." And but it did teach us a lesson, and I've got a LinkedIn post about this in the works, but just the importance of communication, right? And that means, all the way down to your parking enforcement officer. And the reason they got a parking ticket, by the way, is because their car's parked on the grass. Can't do that. So don't park your car in the grass, folks. Okay, this is just another example of a stag that we actually created during Winterfest last year. We had it on display in the core of the district for a number of months, and then we got to move it onto another site. And so it's almost become like a mobile piece, which is really cool. And then we're grateful as well for the Public Arts Commission, the City of Green Bay. They have these rotating podiums. We have a few down here, but these rotate out every year as well. So sculptures don't have to be these big elaborate things. They can be, right? But they don't always have to be. And sometimes it's just starting with small investments and having them graduate into bigger investments. I want to talk about urban design. So we're under the design category. You can't not talk about urban design. And I think I saw Danielle Piarchi here from ISG. And we have partnered with ISG and Downtown Green Bay and the City of Green Bay. And we have retained, the city funded this through ARPA funds. We've retained them on a one-year contract that has a 2-year renewable option. But one of the things that we noticed in our chamber study trips is we visited other communities. They have an incredible commitment to urban design. City of Green Bay does not. And it's not intentional, right? Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so we learned this from other communities, that they have urban designers that are very intentional about the way that they work on progress around their streetscape. And so we said, gosh, there's a real opportunity there for Green Bay to become more holistic in what we do. And that doesn't mean that Broadway needs to look like downtown or Old Main. They can each coexist with unique identities. In fact, most large cities, that's the case. But we have to be more intentional about the way we design our streetscapes, and especially how we design them for people. And so whether you're talking about, if you just even look at this photo, what strikes you about it, right? You got a walkable corridor. You have spaces that are consumed with people and not cars, right? Shouldn't that be the goal of every fun city? Think about when you visit other cities. What do you admire? Do you admire, outdoor patios, or do you admire parking spots? And so it's trying to figure out, we know we need both, right? But it's trying to figure out, how do we make our downtowns more dynamic? Well, it starts with design, and that's what Danielle and her team are gonna help us do. And part of it is establishing design standards. So whether you're talking about the standard for your light fixture, for what your the amenities in your walkway look like, what the width of them is, right? There's a lot of different things. Bump outs. I mean, so when you see an intersection and cars are kind of racing through it, sometimes you put in a bump out to slow down those cars and make it safer for pedestrians because they have a shorter distance to walk, right? These are things that we think about every single day in terms of what we do, and Danielle probably thinks about it even more than we do, so that's why we've got them on as a partner. I want to talk about holiday lighting and the importance of holiday lighting. We have in our budget, and this is all dependent on you, to make bigger investments in holiday lighting. We think that as a retail corridor, the importance of the holiday shopping season is critical for us. We need to find ways to attract people here. There are a lot of people who obviously make investments in holiday lighting around our community, but think about those downtowns again that you visit, right? Having spectacular holiday displays is critically important. Now, this isn't going to happen in 1 year. Downtown Green Bay has done a wonderful job with it on their side of the river, and now we feel like this needs to become a priority for our side of the river. And so we have a campaign that we're going to start this year, and that will probably carry on for several years after that, to really make investments in our holiday lighting. Design also includes cleanup, and this is where a big part of our volunteer hours come in. Our team collected over 200 bags of trash this year. That's 200 bags of trash that are no longer flying out there. And so I really want to thank our volunteers again, because this is thankless work, right? Nobody likes to do this. But it is so important to get the trash picked up. And it's not people that are just throwing trash out there, right? Trash ends up in your district for a lot of reasons, especially when you're in a high-intensity area with a lot of different uses. And so thank you to the volunteers who show up every other week, I guess, really to do this work. Additionally, we plant all the planters throughout the district. So excited about Encompass, who always comes out every year, and we get the kids involved to participate. But these are seasonal planters that kind of rotate throughout the year. And then, of course, we take care of weeding in a lot of our lots. Sadly, weeds grow faster than what we can keep up with, but this is an area in particular that if you are interested in volunteering, Betsy has a job for you, and we'd love to get you involved. Urban design also includes things like public amenities and public spaces. And we saw this vacant lot as an opportunity. If you're not familiar, this is next to Creative Business Solutions and just south of 335. But we said there's a vacant lot that the city has owned for a long time. The ideal situation is development on this lot, but it's not ready for development. A developer hasn't found a way to make the pro forma work yet. So we said, why don't we put in a pop-up dog park right now? And we raised the funds, and Vital Essentials, carnivore meat company who's building a new plant here in Green Bay, was the lead donor on this with naming rights. But now, instead of a vacant lot, you go out there every single day and there are people in there with their dogs. And that's important because 65% of homes in our country have dogs. And as you start to build more residential density down here, and all of them are pet friendly, we need to create places for dogs to exercise. And it's so exciting to actually see this no longer be a vacant lot, and instead is an activated space. And I want to also, I think I broached this last year, but this section of Hubbard Street, this is the old Baycare building. We call it the Red Sculpture Park. I don't think that's an official name, but it's, we're trying to figure out that park has a restrictive covenant on it, meaning that it has to be used for community events. And so we're trying to figure out, this is our rendering, this is not ISG's. We were just playing around with it, but it was like, how can we make this different and more functional, more useful? This was done years ago, in fact, by an intern, I think. But one of the conversations that we're having with ISG is, can that public space even bleed over into the street and become more like a public plaza? Something that can be, programmed regularly, could act as a woo nerf so that cars can pass, but its primary use is maybe more for programming and activation. And so all ideas that are being explored. We received a technical assistance grant from the state of Wisconsin to help fund this project. Not the construction of it, but the ideation and create some renderings. And we have a number of partners, including property owners, business owners, and some folks at City Hall that are all going to participate in that process. So we're excited to see what can come of that. Mayor alluded to Leicht Park. This is a rendering that just has massing, right? So it doesn't mean this is exactly what it's going to look like, but this is a project that ISG has been working on. The city retained them to do this project. We had a TID that was set for closure downtown here, and there was some excess funding in there. And so we started talking with the staff at City Hall. They wanted to do a bathroom, and we kind of pitched back and said, what if we combine the bathroom with kind of a larger facility, and we'll help fundraise for that. And so that way we get a better long-term permanent investment here. And so the city increased their investment, which was great, and then we committed to raise a comparable amount. So we are in the process of that campaign right now, and it's going really, really well. We're having some amazing conversations on it. Our intent and hope is to really break ground on it this year and have this complete in time for the draft. But it just gives you a little sense of what we're looking at. Most folks don't realize this. As you can see from the site plan, this is only the southern, the southern end of the park. It's because the city doesn't own the northern end of the park. That's privately owned. The city leases it. We're allowed to use it for programming and stuff, but obviously we can't put a permanent structure on it when you don't own it. And so that's why this is reserved for here. The Shipyard is going to be a wonderful place for larger opportunities, right? Think of 5,000 to 10,000 people. They have a great lawn, big events. But this is perfectly situated for those types of events that maybe attract 1,000 people. And the intent is that we'll program this a couple days a week. By the way, the reason Leicht Park and Shipyard are under design is because it's the importance of public spaces, right? And again, it's what makes these dynamic downtowns. And so we have, the Shipyard is currently under construction. So that is exciting. We have phase 1 is under construction, will be complete by July is when it's anticipated. And so that's kind of what you see around the perimeter. And that's going to be things like your docks, your dock wall, your boardwalk. There's Phase 2 is going to start probably in August and go through next year, and that's going to include some of your amenities, right? So think about your beach volleyball court, your urban beach, there's going to be a dog park down here, and then Phase 3 will be the container park, and that's a plan that's still evolving. But this just gives you a little sense of kind of what that site layout looks like. No park, is successful without programming, so programming will be a big piece of this as well. Here's an urban beach. How many times have you gone to the beach and actually gone into the water, right? I mean, and very coincidentally, we were in Toronto last year as a team at this past summer at the International Public Market Conference. This is based off of Sugar Beach in Toronto, and we got the opportunity to visit Sugar Beach. And again, it's a beach that there's no access to the water, right? And this place, this photo doesn't look like it, doesn't do it justice, but this place was actually hopping. And so we think that we can create that same type of vibe down here. And these are just some progress construction photos. One of the reasons why this project was delayed, this is a really challenging site. It had contamination, it was in the floodplain, you had to bring in fill, and then you've got to, it takes a year or two for that fill to settle. So, but the great news is that we're seeing a lot of progress down there, and Phase 1 is nearing completion. This is on the south end of that slip. This is where a housing project is currently proposed, and so a lot of work had to be put in there to make that pad ready. This is a current photo. Kind of hard, obviously, to see the progress, but but that's what it looks like today. This is some container parks. So again, container parks, if you've traveled, they're around. We got to visit one in Toronto while we were there, a really great one called Stacked. And it allows for these micro businesses. So this kind of flows a little bit into our economic vitality pillar, but it at least gives you a sense of what a container park in real life versus a rendering can look like. And just a beautiful public space, right, where people want to hang out and spend time. This is another one that's the Box Yard. I believe this one is in Tulsa, if I'm not mistaken. I visited one in London this past summer as well, but you start to get a sense of what that can look like. Promotion. So again, the thing that we're most known for, events. Allie and her team hosted an incredible 58 events last year that had 497,000 attendees. And so hats off to Allie. As far as we know, that is the largest number of people that we've attracted to the district, and that's why we do it, right? It's about attracting people here. It's about activation. I hear a lot of times about the energy in the Broadway District and how people come here more often now on off hours, meaning when events aren't going on. That's the importance of events, right? And they activate spaces and make them vibrant and make you talk about them and want to be down there. This past year, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the Farmers Market. We talked about Greg Larson earlier. Greg was the president of the board when all that happened and really was a driving force for that. This event alone attracts 250,000 people a year to the Broadway District and is probably the largest single source of fundraising for our organization that allows us to do all of the other things that are happening. The proceeds from this are what help fund our staff and what we invest into public art and public amenities. When we look at vendors and tenants for the farmers market, we have 5 buckets that we put people into. Of course, produce. Produce is important. We have double the state average in terms of the number of produce vendors that come to our event. More than 60% of our vendors are either produce or processed foods. Processed foods are like honey, salsas, things like that, right? So you take a USDA designated food desert and now you bring food to it. That's why a lot of these farmers markets exist. Prepared food is obviously one of those other buckets. We limit the number of prepared food vendors. That's by design, right? So because produce is the focus, and then we limit the number of prepared food. You bring in things like flowers but arts and crafts is another one of those buckets. And then the other bucket that we have is for our Broadway businesses. So we have these buckets are carefully balanced, and it's by design, and it's to ensure that you create that you preserve the integrity of the event, right? So that it is a good experience for everybody that comes through. Imagine if you came down here and it was all food trucks. Well, then you'd be going to a food truck rally, not a farmer's market. But imagine if you came down here and all it was produce. That might not be as entertaining, and so you probably wouldn't get enough people to support that many produce farmers, right? So that's why that balance is so important. This past year, we were ranked number 9 in the state in terms of the number of WIC vouchers that we redeemed and what that means, like EBT, right? So folks come down here and they can take their bucks and exchange them and buy fresh produce. We do a Double Your Bucks program working with Wello, which is really important so that folks who are less fortunate can have that access. But we also partnered, I believe it was with 9 different shelters. And we have a couple of sponsors, Schreiber Foods, Brown County, where we take the grants and funding that they provide and we can actually purchase produce. It's good for the businesses because now you're supporting them, but it's also supporting our shelters. So it's a kind of a nice full circle. And this is just one of those where one of our shelters was able to come down and buy a bunch of product for the residents in their facility. One of the cool things we launched this year was this Mini Boss program. This is about getting kids involved. I thought this was so cool. So we partnered with the Fort Howard Neighborhood Association because they had these little like lemonade stands, right? We did it only in the month of August. We had 24 spots available. We had over 50 kids apply. And that just kind of like almost breaks your heart a little bit, right, to turn away that many kids. And so, so Allie, to her credit, is committed to expanding that program this year. And now we're going to do it for 2 months, I believe probably July and August. I mean, not final yet. And we're partnering with NWTC in a program that they have out there with their students to actually build more of these, I'll call them lemonade stands. But it's so cool to see these kids come in and sell their product and teach them that full circle of entrepreneurship, right? Get them in early. This is how you run a business. This is making your product, selling your product, taking those proceeds, reinvesting back into your business. So it was a really neat experience. And so here's a couple of photos that kind of show what that looks like. Chris Kindle Market. This one knocked our socks off this year, I'm not going to lie. I think part of it is probably the weather. The weather's been fantastic this year, but we did the Chris Kindle Market last year as a pilot program. We talk about the importance of small-scale interventions. Not everything has to be huge right away. And so this was one where we said, let's buy. We worked with American Tent. We bought 10 tents, put them in the park. Let's see what happens. We did 5 event days. Chelsea Koken really kind of pulled that together with Discover Green Bay. Well, she was with us. Now she's with Discover Green Bay, but no hard feelings, Chelsea. Just kidding. That's the 3rd time she worked for me, so she keeps coming back. I don't know. Brad, watch yourself. You might get her back. But Chelsea did a wonderful job with bringing this event together last year, right? And what we proved is success. We attracted 10,000 people in 5 event days, and we're like, holy cow, this is the thing. So this year we partnered with Bolt, who built these wooden chalets. And we were really grateful for their support. And so we kept the tents, we added the chalets, and now we had 22 vendors, I believe. And we went from 5 days to 12 days. So we went every single weekend up until Christmas. And the result, part of it was, what drove that success. We received a GEM grant, which stands for Joint Effort Marketing Grant from the state of Wisconsin, 2nd year in a row that we received that, and that helps us promote, of course, which is really important. We partnered with the city, and we brought in their ice skating rink that used to be on the city deck, right? And that thing's sitting in storage. All right, let's find a home for it. And so a lot of folks came in and used that. Here's some daytime photos. Keep in mind, folks, this is only the 2nd year, right, that this event has happened. We partnered with Herkman Mechanical, who owns the building over here and the rooftop deck, and we put in these igloos. They all sold out, like blown away. We did not expect that. Every single slot sold out, and we programmed the heck out of it, making candles, bringing in reindeer, bringing in Santa, carolers, all that stuff, right, that is so important. We partnered with Minsos, who's the family that owns Lorelei, and they brought in some German food, and they're preparing it on site right in front of you. They sold out of food all the time. Okay, that's just a little promo piece done by Shift, but gives you a visual appeal of it. But we had 40,000 attendees at that event this year. So we went from 10,000 to 40,000. And the GEM grant we had to create, we had to do an economic impact analysis on that, had an economic impact of over $900,000 on the district, and that's based on average spend per attendee, and that's not just money spent at the event. some of our retailers that we spoke to, some of their busiest nights and days were when the Chris Kindle market was going on. So we're seeing that residual impact that affects the district, which is what the goal is. Real quickly, I want to talk about the 11 Amp Green Bay Music Series. We received, because of your support and your help, a 3-year grant. This past year, we brought this back in. This is about promoting inclusion in our community, right? And so every week, you're bringing in original music, diverse musicians, with different genres of music that speak to every corner of our community. And we complement it with programming. And so it's all about bringing in something that's different maybe than what you're used to seeing around here and building a culture around it. We created this hype team that had, I think, almost 70 people that were our hype, that kind of went out and hyped up the event series and made it fun. Just amazing, amazing music for anybody who had a chance to attend. Thanks to Barb in New North, who helped support this series in August for Color Bold Association, which brought in a lot of our minority-owned businesses to have booths at the event and be able to sell their products. So for us, it was a really great success. 10,000 people that came to that event. And by the way, we're going to talk, we don't just pull these numbers out of the sky. We use Placer data. If you're not familiar with Placer, it uses you draw geofences around the event, and it pulls your phone data. And so you get real-time data in terms of how many people are there. I want to just real quickly mention a change to the Ignite markets. We've done 4 of these in the past. We're condensing them down to 2. Sometimes less is more. And we think with this event that is so intensive with capital, so intensive with supporting our artists, that we think that if we take that money, put it through a smaller funnel, that we can create a better impact and a better experience. And so we made the decision to put this event down to 2 events, but the same amount of resources going into it. So we're super excited about seeing how that works. Every year we do an analysis on our events. What's working, what's not, right? And these are some photos from Ignite Market, and it's been great. They've been wonderful, but we just think that this is one that's kind of due for a little bit of a refresh. But you can see all of the artistic things that happen. Of course, we're most well known for the hot air balloon glow on this event, which is shockingly difficult to get balloons up when there's a slight breeze. And so something you learn, I guess. But Winter Wine and Beer Walks, Betsy is in charge of this event. Record number of sales this year. And this event for a lot of our retailers is really, really important because it brings people in during the shopping season. And so we're super excited. I mean, that's I don't know, 2,800, 2,700 people that came down for that. And so it was a really good thing. A couple of photos. Betsy's got some plans to kind of enhance the overall experience with this event, which we'll be working on. Not a lot of people know this. And I am curious, by show of hands, how many of you knew that On Broadway was in charge of Fire Over the Fox? Not everybody knows, right? So now everybody does. That's walking out of here today. So we took this event over from Discover Green Bay a couple years ago, and so we've done some things to it to try to manage some of the challenges that it had, and I think we've seen dramatic improvements. At least that's the feedback we've gotten from our police and fire departments, and so the city's been a great partner with us on this event, and we're going to continue to organize this for downtown and hopefully create really, really great experiences for our families, particularly with all the different family activities that we've now incorporated into this event. And then, so the event analysis was just talking about Placer. We analyze every event, we bring in the data, we can see where people are coming from, where they're going, what their spends are. It's really fascinating data, and that's part of what Mary's job is to become more analytical with how we look at that. And then brand development. Is anybody else in this room confused when we talk about the Broadway District and On Broadway and what the difference is? I mean, I work for the organization, I'm confused, so it's okay to shake your head yes. So this is one of those other things that Mary's going to work on, is how do we create a more cohesive brand identity for the organization so that people can understand what the heck the difference is. But for the record, Broadway District defines the geographic area. On Broadway is the nonprofit organization that kind of works on the stuff in it. So it's an opportunity for us. And then the co-op marketing is something that we also see as a huge opportunity for us. We've done a little bit of this in the past. Think of Small Business Saturday, 12 Days of Christmas. But we think there's an opportunity here. We're stronger when we work together and to promote the identity of the Broadway District as a shopping retail corridor. And you attract people down because density creates demand. When you can attract people to a core area, then everybody wins. It's called the economies of agglomeration for those who are economic nerds. I am not one of those, clearly. That's a joke. That really landed flat. Okay. Okay, and then our last pillar is economic vitality. And so this is, to me, one of the most exciting ones that we do. And it's, quite frankly, probably one of the more robust. And more you're seeing this talked about in the Main Street network. That is, Main Streets are truly economic development organizations, but they're not oftentimes thought about it that way. And so we have to do a better job of talking about the things that we do in economic vitality. As I mentioned before, one of the first things we did this year is we prioritized the need to work with our minority-owned businesses. And that is where Fatma comes into play and where she is really starting to excel working with a number of our businesses. And we have $300,000 of micro grants that we get to give out to businesses. That was funded by an ARPA grant from the state of Wisconsin. We applied for it. It was a competitive grant. We won it. And now the Broadway District gets to benefit from that. And $300,000 will go directly to business owners like Albert, who leased a bigger space above Zulu, like Early, who is a tenant in the cannery. We've been able to provide over $25,000 of direct support to tenants in the cannery already, which has been really exciting to be able to see these businesses who are brand new, who don't own businesses, but need that just a little additional support to test their concept. So that's been really fun to see. But it also requires us, as part of the grant, we're integrating more programming. We added this past year a Latin stage at Fire Over the Fox, and it was the most popular stage at the event. So we have a huge Latin community here and completely underserved, right, with our traditional events. And so we're sensing opportunities, whether it's the Levitt, whether it's Fire Over the Fox, the Farmers Market, right? There's a number of things that we're really working to do to integrate more of this into all the programming that we do. And part of that was creating this year, for the first time, we translated our farmers market applications into Spanish and Hmong, recognizing the large number of people in our community who have a language barrier. But that shouldn't keep them out of our events. And so we translated those applications with the support of a few partners. The other thing on economic vitality that I want to hit on, the Business Improvement District has been a great supporter of a new program that we brought to them, which creates grants for retail businesses. You can't have a retail corridor if you don't have retail businesses. And retail is scary for a lot of folks. But retail is so critically important to the success of our district. And so if you are a retail business or you know someone who's a retail business, we have $2,500 grants that can help bridge that financial gap to get you into your space. And this is separate from the DBA grants the micro grants I was mentioning before. So those can be used for retail as well, but the DBA grants, diverse business assistance grants, they can be used for any type of business, as long as they locate within the Broadway District. Housing. This is a project that's been done in open, but added 107 units, I believe, to the Broadway District, created a nice buffer between the homeless shelter and the rail yard area and transitional housing, but it is 100% occupied. We need more of this. Okay, this is the fort at the rail yard, under construction, if you haven't seen it. Remember, they started and they had to stop for a little while. It's complex. Anybody who wants to talk about it, come see me. But they're doing fantastic work over here. This is going to be 233 units, I believe. And this is going to be scaled housing. Some will be market rate, some is subsidized based on your income. But these are some renderings of what that looks like, but this is work in progress. You can start to see that the facade is really starting to take shape. They're expected to start leasing up by late summer, early fall. Really starting to look good. The thing with this is they never changed the design of their facade even when their model had to change. And that is what's most important when you look at housing development in the downtown core. The Shipyard. Merge urban development is going to break ground this year. And so, again, I mentioned really difficult site conditions, but this is finally going to be underway this year, and it will come in phases, like a lot of large-scale housing projects. 225 market rate housing units with some retail access on the first floor, as you can see there. But this is all about activating your waterfront. And you can see putting in the walkway, right, the waterfront walkway, and seeing that expanded, and you continue that discussion of trail connectivity. We talked about Badger Sheet Metal. We had a planning option on this with a developer. Didn't work out. That happens all the time, right? You can't cry over it. You got to get back to work. And so we recognize it's really, really hard to get housing done. Costs are expensive. Interest rates are high. And it's almost impossible to get it done, to get housing done without some level of subsidy. But as the mayor said, we have housing needs all across the board. It's not just low income. We have all kinds of housing needs at every income level. And so sometimes you have to be a little bit more innovative with the way you bring things to market. And so so recently, the city just issued, this is the site, right, shows what this layout could look like in restoring the greenway that once existed there. But we issued, the city did, an RFQ, request for qualification, for developers who might be interested in partnering with the city. The city has a need to build a new fire station on the west side. What if you combine the fire station with housing? And then you save costs on the construction of the fire station, and you save costs for the housing developer. Now, I know what you're all thinking. I don't want to be the person woke up by sirens every night, right? I'm telling you, like, sirens typically don't get flipped on until they're a block down the road, okay? It's not going to be a problem. And this is how you activate a first floor, but bring in some of that housing development. These are real examples of where these things exist in other communities, and it can be done here in Green Bay, and we can't be afraid to try new things. We talk a lot about the middle missing housing market, right? That's your duplex, tripleplex, sort of those middle housing things. Large-scale development, is happening, as you can see. Single homes happens in certain types of neighborhoods. Downtown, though, is where this middle housing oftentimes exists. It is incredibly challenging to do, but we cannot be deterred. It is so important to do, and it's finding the right incentives. This stat I learned at the National Main Street Conference, and this was astounding to me. Every new housing unit in downtown creates $14,000 of new spending downtown. This is why housing is important downtown. Not only because of the density and the walkability and all that, but with 1,000 units either under planning or under construction just in the Broadway District, it doesn't include the east side, that's an a direct spend of $14 million here in the Broadway District. This is why housing continues to be a priority of our organization. So, of course, every year we get new businesses that come into the district. A lot of it has to do with where's the space, right? Right now, we don't have a ton of space. That's the reality. So you have to create it and continue to drive infill development. The rail yard creates a really great opportunity for new spaces. They can build to suit, right? They build out as you need it, and that's a really smart way to do development. And then, of course, as businesses turn over, our goal is to get people in there as quickly as we can. This past year, we saw 23 new businesses come into the district. Rooted in a great nonprofit that is housed down in Trinity Lutheran Church's building. You've got Edits, which is really cool, they sell like housing, home furnishings and things like that, but they also do, they have a salon there. River Pine and Salon, which is in the rail yard. And then we saw some improvements. Save a Lot, did a really nice facelift. And we're proud of that. And you need this downtown grocery store. But we also saw some major investments. Herkman Mechanical bought the former Baycare building, and they moved a bunch of their office staff down here. So you're seeing a property that has sat empty for a couple of years, and now it's reactivated, which is really exciting. The new community clinic built a brand new building next to the homeless shelter and provides some critical services for members of our community. Paper Transport located a large number of their office staff down in the rail yard. And so you're starting to see, right, people who come down here. What happens when you have people in downtown? They spend money. This is why you want people working downtown. This, to me, was a really cool success story this past year, the Cannery Test Kitchen. And I want to emphasize the last two words. This is a test kitchen. Please, folks, go there. The food is amazing. The tenants they do some really cool, interesting foods. This was, I think, opening day. Wes was kind of an interim tenant in there. That he runs a local food truck, but it's a test kitchen, right? So these are folks who are testing their product, who have never owned a restaurant, and we need to teach them how to be restaurant owners. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's not a failure. Sometimes it's a good thing when a business owner learns that owning a restaurant's not for them. And then you go and you recruit the next folks and bring them in. And so I love what this project is doing, and I think we ought to do a little bit more of that kind of stuff here in our community. Property improvements, we saw some substantial ones. Bertrand's received a facade grant from the city and is improving these windows here so that they can prepare for a long-term tenant, hopefully to kind of move into that space and see redevelopment of that property. You may have noticed that there's some demo going on in this property in Dousman Street. And these are just some drawings and renderings. They're trying to restore this back, to the best of their ability, what it used to look like. This is in a historic district, and this is what that building used to look like. So it's really cool to kind of see that preservation going on. This is, I cannot say that middle word, Felix du Chateau. How'd I do? All right. Okay, so this is the former Bangkok Garden Building. That's easier. Garrett Bader and John Martins and Greg Maddock, who are all owners of this property, really did a phenomenal. This is a $2 million reinvestment. Projects like this are really hard, folks. When you have old buildings, the reason a lot of them see a wrecking ball is because they are incredibly expensive and difficult and challenging to redevelop. And these guys took a property and turned it from that to this. And what's more important, right, interior shots, this property was not structurally sound. This property was not far from a wrecking ball. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. And the importance of preserving, a historical property like this for future generations. That roof, by the way, these 2x4s are what were holding up the roof, right? And that whole second floor was mothballed. And so this was not a property in good condition. And this is what the upstairs looks like now. So we talk about the housing, right, above storefront housing is a big thing in Main Street. The city has a grant fund called TADA, Tax Incremental District Affordable Housing, which is what allowed the restoration of this to happen. And so now you have 7 new units in this property, and every one adds up, right? This is a cool second floor deck on that. Wisconsin Bank and Trust, if not for their investment, right, like to lease space in here, this doesn't happen. And so we're very grateful for their investment to make that happen. And activating a corner, right? So let's put the break room on the corner because that's what you want to see is corner activation. And this is kind of what it looks like at night. But I'd be remiss to not mention there's still 1,500 square feet of retail space available in this building. And so the developers recognize the importance of being able to bring in that activation. And we have 3 different tenants that we're actually talking to. 3 different models that could potentially come in there. But, the ink's never dry until it's dry. So if anyone's looking for retail space, come see me. New announcements. This is a cool project we are working on that is going to happen this year. We are creating a retail incubator. So much like the test kitchen with the cannery, this is an incubator. It's meant to bring in people that come in for maybe 12 months, 18 months, 3 years. We haven't totally fleshed it all out, but the idea is that you're creating spaces for retailers. Retail is important to a retail corridor. Duh. So how do we overcome the barriers that sometimes exist? And you need to create spaces where people can test their model and learn what works and doesn't work. This is in Boston for anybody who's ever been there. But it's the idea is that you can take spaces. There are a couple different models. Some are sort of you're independent, you manage it within a space. The other part of it is you create a co-op space. And we're probably looking more at a co-op model. But the idea here, again, is that you can test your product and see how it performs before you make a commitment in a space. And then the benefit to us is when a space does become available, we have a pool of maybe a dozen tenants that we can immediately go to and say, how about you move into this space? And then you can preserve the integrity of your retail corridor. Green Bay City Club, one of the sponsors for today. Thank you, Britt, for that. And but House of Homebrew, sadly closed up. And it was a tough retail type of environment, and sometimes these things work better through mail order and stuff like that. But we appreciate, obviously, the long tenure that they did have here in the Broadway District, and now it creates a new opportunity. And so she's going to turn this into a special event venue that can be hosted for small gatherings. I think it's up to 200 people, if I recall correctly. But that's going to come under construction shortly. This is the apartment upstairs that can actually be leased as part of that venue. So that's kind of cool. As you can see, this is a beautiful space upstairs. The downstairs will look very similar. And that, I believe, is going to happen later this year. Will be ready later this year. This is another proposal by the Charlton Theater called the Truck Yard. And so this is that grassy lot corner that's there. Again, not adding a lot of value, right? So this is sort of a vision of how you can turn this into a food truck court. We see these a lot in other cities. And so how do you bring in just an environment where food trucks can easily gain access? Can't go through this without parking. So partnered with the city. By the way, guys, related to parking, so we partnered with the city. And we needed to update our parking study. How is parking working in our community? And we need to talk about different ways of managing parking. And part of that is podium parking, right? And so we are working on something right now. This is an example of podium parking where you have parking on the first, second, third floor, but then you have housing or commercial space up above. This should be the new standard, right? So you have that activation on the first floor. These are all in La Crosse, by the way. If La Crosse can do it, I don't see why Green Bay can't figure it out. It's not that we can't figure it out. The point is, like, this is what we need to do. I love this quote. This is from Jess Speck, who wrote Walkable City. Quincy, thank you for creating this meme. This is not actually off his Twitter feed. She created this. This is a photo of Houston. This is what minimum parking requirements do to your downtown. Creates parking lots, right? Does anybody want to go visit that? So this is the importance of making sure that you manage parking appropriately. And part of that is going up, not sideways. And then as part of that parking study also, we're evaluating different concepts. What's recommended in the study is that we go from like these traditional standard meters, which say 2 hours and then you're done, and can you create escalation, right? So you know what, you get 2 hours, but then after that, you can stay for 3 hours, but you just have to pay a little bit more. Why do you do that? Because you don't want employees and staff members parking where customers need to park. Right? So the idea is that you're pushing people out, you're turning cars over, and that's done very intentionally because it happens. 10 years ago when the city did a parking study, everybody along Broadway, in fact, this was more before my time, but I heard the story from the parking utility. They were complaining that there was no customer parking out here. They did a survey of all the cars that hogged up the entire street. 80% of them were employees that parked down here because they can run the lights, they run the plates. This is why you have regulated parking. By the way, I talked to the parking utility. Sometimes they write little nice notes on your cars. That's really to tell you that, they're encouraging, right? They're telling you parking, fine. Yes. Okay, we're going to start bringing this home here. Rail Yard Innovation District. This is, as you guys know, sort of a mixed-use development site down on the end here. There are a couple of lots where it says future development, right? There are a couple of lots here. They're still available for, commercial, for residential. If anybody ever, is talking to developers and has an interest in here, we'd love to talk to them. But what I love about this is that the old warehouse buildings have been preserved. They've been restored. They are 97% occupied. That is phenomenal. And the number of people and the number of jobs that they brought down here, in addition to the residential development, the rail yard condominiums, as well as the Fort at the rail yard and Broadway lofts, that are all complete or under construction. Building T is the last building. This is the last one, and they're under construction because they have interest from tenants that are ready to sign leases. So this is super exciting. This is what it looks like in there right now. As you can see the windows are kind of all blown out, and that was an interior photo, of course. Here's another one. So if anybody is looking for tenancy, this is one of the most ideal places in our district right now where they can build to suit and get you down here, where you can be part of the energy and the vibrancy that is all going on. Last item, Green Bay Public Market. I get asked about this every single day. So we're going to make a public announcement on this hopefully within the next month. So I'm going to tease you a little bit today, but not give you the full rundown. This is kind of what the building looks like today. Obviously, you just saw the rendering before. This is a building that we did buy in April of 2022. So we've owned it for roughly 2 years. This is, I tell people this every chance I get, this is hands down the hardest project that I have ever worked on. And it is complex because you have tenants that occupy the space, you have to recruit new tenants, you have to raise money, you've got to work through architectural engineering design, you're working through parking solutions. But this is what the floor plan looks like. We've covered this before, but just a reminder, this is first floor. This has space for 26 tenants. Folks will probably condense. You end up with 20 tenants. Milwaukee Public Market, by comparison, is the same square footage with 17 tenants. So that's the scope of the facility that you're looking at. This is what the second floor looks like, with a demo kitchen, a space for programming. You got some stuff on the end there. That'll all contribute to activation of this space. And this is what separates public markets from other types of development. It's the intentional dedication to programming. This is what the outside looks like. So it's a rendering, right? It may change yet, but service windows to the outside, trying to create really unique public spaces where people can sit. People. Interior renderings. So you can start to see again what this interior could look like. This is totally changed, right, by the types of tenants or vendors that might occupy the space. So where are we at? As of today, we have exceeded 50% of our $12.5 million fundraising goal. So we've made tremendous progress. The nice part is that means we're sliding downhill. And we are going to start some selective demo on this next month. And selective demo is like taking out certain pieces where you don't have to do a lot of disruption. You're kind of respecting, the tenants that still occupy the space until they exit. But it allows us to get a head start on it. So engineering is progressed. We're working on construction documents right now. Our goal is to have this space open and operating before the NFL draft. So that is a year away, a little more than a year away. And we have a Gantt chart, a timeline that can allow us to achieve that. But we are still actively, we have really great tenant conversations going on. It's more art than science. We want the right tenants, not any tenant. And so we will leave spaces empty before we fill it with the wrong types of tenants. And so if any of you know somebody who's looking for tenancy, we are actively signing leases right now. In fact, we have a number of leases already signed, and that's what will be part of our public announcement in the next month or so, in addition to just the announcement that we've raised half of our goal. So we're really excited about the progress. This is happening. And the reason I know it's happening is because our contractor called me and said, hey, we need to order electrical components. There's a 14-month lead time. They are $350,000 and they are non-refundable. So it's happening, folks. And that, by the way, that just shows parking, right? So this is where the parking structure is proposed on the back, and that's the green. And that's meant to be 286 stalls. So we're going to triple the amount of parking that's currently available back there, and we're going to add residential housing on top. That will likely come at a later date and will be staged out, but that is part of the overall proposal because we need to create residential density, and that will come from a private developer, not us. Okay. So with that's it. I'm done. Finally. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I wasn't anticipating just, okay, I'm done. But I am Betsy Sorensen. I'm the special events manager at On Broadway. I also took over the volunteer coordinator position in October of this past year. Brian mentioned some of the stats that I was going to hit on. We are going to run a little bit long today, but I hope if you can stay, I ask you do. We're going to go through our volunteer awards, and we really cannot do what we do without them. So it's really important that we recognize the work that they do. They help with so many things, including all aspects of our events: prep, setup, tear down, activity monitoring. We also recruit community help for design work, as Brian hit on earlier. Also, Carrie and Quincy from my team are going to be coming around with a basket for any donations that you guys have with those envelopes that were from your chairs or your tables. Anyway, continuing the volunteer spiel. Last year was our biggest year yet for our spring cleanup, with a record number of 175 volunteers. Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask those of you in attendance today, if you have volunteered with us, please stand now. That includes anyone serving on the board or a committee. I know there are a lot of you in the room, so you better stand. Amazing, thank you all. You can take a seat. We are always looking for ways to engage with the community. I will be around after the event. There is a sheet included in your bags today with my contact information on it and upcoming volunteer opportunities. Before we announce our awards today, I would like to take a moment to remember a volunteer that we lost in 2023. This past October, Chris Augustine, a core member of our volunteer team, lost his battle with cancer. He always brought a smiling face to our events and continued volunteering even through his treatments. His strength, friendliness, and dedication to the community will be deeply missed. Please join me in a moment of silence as we remember Chris and we send our condolences to all who knew him. Thank you. And now I'd like to announce our 2023 Volunteer Awards. We have a few categories, the first being 50-hour volunteers. Folks, when you hear your name, please stand and come to the right of the stage here where you can get your award from Quincy. I ask that the audience refrains from any applause until all the volunteers have been announced. And then once the program is over, all the volunteers, if you could come back up here to the stage so we can take photos. So for our first 50-hour volunteer award, we have the dynamic duo Kevin and Jeannie Dox-Tater. These two were at nearly every single Levitt Amp Green Bay music series this summer, helped out with countless winter events, and were eager to jump in whenever they saw we needed help. Next, we have another couple, Chip and Julie Hill. Along with Kevin and Jeannie, they were always at the Levitt concerts, Ignite markets, and braved a night in the cold at the Chris Kindle Market. Their dedication to the district is so greatly appreciated. Next is Kristen Hubble. You can find her smiling face behind the info booth at the farmers market, under the beverage tent at Ignites and Chris Kindle Markets, and doing check-in for our wine walks. Another instrumental part of our event team. Thank you, Kristen. Next up is Ryan Crumry. Ryan is an attorney with Hager, DeWick, and Zingler Attorneys at Law. He served on our board of directors and has been instrumental in assisting with the countless contracts that go into building and launching a public market. Next is our spectacular board president, Barb Lemieux. Barb is the president and CEO of the New North. She is our board president, and as you are witnessing here today, is always present at events, ribbon cuttings, and so much more to represent our organization as a respected leader in this community. Jenny Lump is next. You may recognize her from being behind the beverage tent at most farmers markets and Ignites. She coined the fun title for herself, Volun Beer, and is also the mother to little future OBI volunteers who make plenty of appearances at events. Thank you, Jenny. Our next 50-hour volunteer award goes to Chris Speckard. Chris always brings a kind-hearted presence wherever he goes, and that includes our farmers markets, Ignite markets, Winter Wine and Beer Walk pop-up stop, and Winterfest. He always offers to help whenever we need it. Next is Ken Stromiska. Ken is the founder and chief operating officer at Inovia Health. Ken has held leadership positions in the nonprofit sector for the past 30 years and was named chair of our capital campaign cabinet, raising funds for the Green Bay public market. His experience and relationships have helped us find early success in the philanthropic community. Last but not least is Ken Wachter. Ken is the retired CEO of PMI Entertainment. He serves on our board of directors and on our capital cabinet campaign for the Green Bay public market. His experience in the entertainment industry has helped counsel staff as plans take shape for the Leicht Park project. Let's give a round of applause for all of our 50-hour volunteers. Next, we have our 100-hour volunteer category. First is Garrett Bader. Garrett is principal at GB Real Estate Investments. He served on our board of directors and on our capital campaign cabinet for the public market. His real estate experience has been crucial in bringing the Green Bay Public Market project to fruition. Michael Brodhagen is next on my list, our 2022 Volunteer of the Year. Michael has continued to show his dedication to On Broadway and the community through his help with events. Without fail, he came to every farmer's market, stepped in on cold nights at the Chris Kindle Market, and so much more. Thank you, Michael. Next, we have John Roque, a resident in the Broadway District. John is always looking for ways to help, whether dressing in costume, prepping event supplies, or keeping our district clean. We truly appreciate all you do. Thank you, John. Our last 100-hour volunteer award goes to Ken and Fran Ravinsky. They are the key to so much of what we do. They are the champions of farmers market setup, acquiring the district Christmas tree with their truck and trailer, hauling seasonal decor, helping to clean out a garage, and a plethora of other handy projects. These two have so much love in their hearts for our team and the district, and we couldn't do what we do without them. Thank you, Ken and Fran. Thank you to all of our 100-hour volunteers. Let's give them all a round of applause. Next, I would like to announce our Group Volunteer Award. Throughout the year, we work with many corporate groups to achieve our mission. In 2023, one group stuck out above the rest, bringing a record number of 150 volunteers to our spring cleanup. Please help me award the team at Associated Bank. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in our community. Our last volunteer award today is Volunteer of the Year, and that goes to Kurt Carpenter. Kurt is a smiling, friendly addition to all of our events and is willing to jump in whenever he sees a need. He was a core presence at farmers markets, Levitt Amp concerts, Ignite markets, and winter wine and beer walks. He was even willing, as you can see here, to don a tux and serve food and beverage at the High Five fundraising event this year. Kurt, your commitment to the Broadway District is so greatly appreciated. Thank you for everything. Let's give all of our volunteers one more round of applause. Again, we would not be able to do what we do without them, so thank you so much. As I said before, at the end of today's presentation, please make your way back up here and we'll take photos. And now I'm going to hand it over to Brooke Haves, our Director of Development.
First of all, thanks to everyone who knows Brian Johnson well enough to not schedule a 10 a.m. meeting, so thank you for still being here. I am Brooke Haves, Director of Development for On Broadway, and I have the honor of presenting this year's Broadway District Impact Award. This is a staff pick award, and it goes every year to someone who goes above and beyond kind of those regular duties of a volunteer and who has made some real impact in the Broadway District. So I am happy to announce this year's winner is Paul Jaden. Now, Paul is not here to accept this award, but I do want to just mention some of the wonderful things he's done to deserve this award this year. Paul Jaden's leadership over the past 3 decades has really resulted in the revitalization of the Broadway District. When he was elected mayor in 1995, the Broadway District wasn't exactly the nicest place. He founded and funded On Broadway as an organization as a way to launch catalytic change down here. He was responsible for a multi-million-dollar investment making streetscape enhancements to the corridor, which led to private investment in the district. He secured block grant dollars to strategically buy out and relocate establishments that weren't adding value to the district. He was also signed into law the Broadway moratorium, which prohibited further expansion of liquor licenses in the district without a supermajority vote by council. Jaden convinced the city to allocate more police presence down here, reducing the crime rate by 80%. Public safety was very crucial in getting the public to buy into the district's revitalization. So incredibly impactful as the mayor for his term and over those 8 years. His work did not stop there. He went on to serve as the president and CEO of the Greater Green Bay Chamber for 7 years, where he had a staff that was designated and devoted to the bids in the downtown. He was responsible for a partnership to construct the first new building in the district in a generation and brought the Chamber building down to the Broadway District. Again, another big move to launch catalytic change in the Broadway District. He didn't stop there. His LinkedIn profile is very impressive. He went on to serve as the first CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and under his leadership there, he created a variety of programs which brought funding to downtowns in Wisconsin. And now, in retirement, he continues to serve our district. He has been instrumental as a cabinet member for our capital campaign for the Green Bay Public Market. He has solely been responsible for millions of dollars in private donors to make this project come to life. So he's just, I can't say enough about him. Personally learning from him over the last year, his relationships, his experience, his knowledge, it cannot be understated. So this is our second time awarding someone who is down in a warm climate to make us jealous. So we have a video from Paul.
Greetings everyone from Pensacola, Florida. I want to thank all of you for thinking about me and for allowing me to get back involved in something that's very near and dear to my heart. I also want to thank you for all the wonderful momentum you've enjoyed since we created On Broadway back in the 90s and of course achieved Main Street status. So please keep the magic in the air on Broadway, and I look forward to seeing you when I get back.
All right, short and sweet, just like Paul is. All right, and as you can see on the screen here, because of his impact and his leadership over the last 30 years, we have decided to rename this award to the Paul Jaden Impact Award. right, so that is my portion of the program. I will now hand it over to Carrie and Allie to wrap things up.
All right, everyone. Carrie and I have the honor to do the drawing today for the painting, so I am going to invite Nathan up here to show you his artwork. He painted this in just 2 hours, which I think is incredible. He has a true talent and knack for this. So anyone who donated today or donated when registering is in this drawing. All right. And the winner is Marissa, Michikowski Whiskey. Marissa, I saw her leave, unfortunately, but we'll make sure to get her the painting. Thanks, Nathan. All right, so to conclude the event today, I have the honor to introduce a beautiful piece of poetry written by Cujo, coupled with the amazing videography from Shift Visuals. Cujo is a local artist who runs poetry open mic nights. He teaches expressive writing to the youth and is a raptivist inspiring personal empowerment. Cujo was also awarded the title of 2023 Wisconsin Hip Hop Rap Artist of the Year at the Whammies this year. So pretty cool to have that award local. Shift Visuals is a Broadway business that specializes in full-service video production and the art of storytelling. This collaboration between the two just scratches the surface of the many businesses in the district, but is an ode to what people think, see, and feel when they hear the word Broadway. Enjoy.
When I think Broadway, I think that old brick building up the road. Train cars loaded down with black coal, fueling the engine of progress. I think canned peas and veg-all. What a long way we've came. Canned beer and chocolates, some tastes never change. A friendly pub where somebody knows your name, or at least your drink. A bridge up for a mighty ship. When I think about Broadway, I think about all the history. A foundation laid by industry, but thoughts are kind of a mystery, either past or future, but ever fleeting. Sometimes it's best to just open up your eyes and take in what you're seeing. When I see Broadway, I see familiar facades with a fresh face that'll turn your head. Larger-than-life lions looking over those to be wed. A festival of color painting the sky reflected on the river. A welcome winter wonderland to wander and while away the weather. I see an historic walking art gallery featuring some of our city's greatest treasures. When I smell Broadway, I smell warm roasted coffee beans, fresh baked bread leading my nose downstream. I smell caramely malted barley wafting down the alleys and fragrant herbs of healing for every need. When I hear Broadway, I hear surprising talent teasing sound waves on the street. I hear, "Welcome to Pete's. What can I get you?"
Come on in. Let's find your dream dress.
I hear the roar of the crowd rising to meet the energy on the stage, and friends I haven't seen in too long calling my name. I hear dogs bark and children laugh, the buzz and bustle of business and the chug-a-chug of train tracks, grungy guitar, dazzling drums and vivacious vocals, new music to discover. And you know what else? I hear we're doing the best we can to take care of each other. When I taste Broadway, I taste fresh, fine cuisine from field, pasture, and sea. Homegrown happiness that brings my roots back to me. I taste a trip around the world that brings new perspective, new exciting flavors, and old-fashioned favorites perfected. When I feel Broadway, I feel welcome to be myself and celebrated for showing up authentically me. A reason to get out in my city, summer, fall, winter, or spring. A transformation like coal piles under pressure, crystallizing into diamonds. I feel the rising tide lifting all ships because we're all in this together. No one is an island. I feel like I'm part of something.
Exciting. Creative.
Inclusive.
Energetic.
Lively. A delight for the senses, gives me a sense of lightness, and suddenly I'm out of the present with the best intentions, feeling bubbly, effervescent, dreaming of a future bright, incandescent. When I dream Broadway, I dream a vibrant, thriving marketplace where you can find whatever you need. An active riverfront where we can work and play and dream. A spirited downtown identity my son, my daughter, will be proud to call her scene. Captivating cargo texture, creating a clever space for commerce, festivals, and recreation. A bridge between the past and future, keeping us connected to our roots and traditions, but relevant in the new economy with forward-thinking innovations. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." And I think everyone here believes there are beautiful things we can achieve. But how often do we keep our dreams safe in our pockets next to our doubts and fears of the in-between? Because on our own, dreams can seem like impossible schemes. But the dreams we dream together, well, those dreams become reality.
All right, thank you again to Shift and Cujo for that piece. This video concludes the event today. Thank you to all of our wonderful sponsors again for making this event possible, and shout out to Gather for hosting us. Thank you all for attending. We appreciate your support. Have a great day.